All right, welcome everybody. I'm Bill Pesco-Lido, and this is another case study interview for the Lido Agency. And today we have with us one of our clients, a really great guy, Hunter Thompson. Hunter is the managing principal of Asym Capital. You've been a client of ours now for about 10 months. And before we dive into the case study portion of this recording, Hunter, just would you mind telling our audience just a little bit about what Asym Capital does and who you serve?
Sure. So thanks again for the opportunity to tell the story, because it's definitely something I'm super excited about. So I have a private equity company that's called Asym Capital. It's short for asymmetric returns. And we also have a coaching side of our business where we have a book and we teach people how to do what I do professionally, which is raise money for real estate deals. And so the two businesses are kind of symbiotic in the sense that we raise capital and we also teach people how to raise capital. And so that's a little bit about what we do.
Cool. And then I know from our discussions, just when writing ads for you and things like that, that you yourself have been pretty successful in raising capital for your own deals, correct?
That's right. Yeah, I've raised about somewhere close to $60 million for real estate deals and purchased around $150 million worth of real estate. And then I wrote a book about the topic because I went to a conference and there was like 300 people at the conference and they said, raise your hand if you raised more than $100,000. And everyone raised their hand. And it was like, raise your hand if you raised more than $1 million. And it's like less people. And then it was like more than 20 million. It's like only me. I was like, I think I should probably write a book about this. So that's what I did.
Very cool. Awesome. And that's what kind of led you to us in the sense that you have this business that's that would exist regardless of the Lido Agency's involvement. But then we started coming out with, the book and the coaching and these kinds of programs. That's really when you wanted to partner with an agency to help you get those out to the world. So if you think about, prior to working with us, what were some of the challenges or problems that you were faced with that you were just having a hard time solving?
Well, when I first launched my first kind of info product space, I really wasn't contemplating doing any sort of advertising. We have a podcast that's organic and there's always the discussion around organic versus paid ads. And I think there's no discussion around that. Those two work symbiotically. And if you're, as long as your business has the ability to accept more clients, you should definitely be doing both. That's my personal perspective. If it's a lifestyle thing, I get it. But like, if your goal is to actually grow, you should be doing both because there's so much low hanging fruit that's created by organic that you're not taking advantage of. And I learned this because we launched an educational product, all organic, and it was successful. We were able to generate, let's say $10,000 a month in a revenue. And I was like, oh my gosh, cool side hustle. This is amazing. And then I went through some training, spent about $100,000 in coaching and consulting to kind of learn if you have a business model that's scalable, that can take an additional 10x, 100x, 1000x clients, you should be mixing all that hard work you're doing with organic with paid. And so I went down this insane rabbit hole. I don't know how long you want me to go, but I'm sure that a lot of people watching this right now. This is a very challenging, difficult, complicated industry to navigate. And again, I paid consultants tens of thousands of dollars to try to figure it out, try to teach my team. Just very difficult to stay on the cutting edge of what's going on with all these different platforms. And if you learn, and let's say you take a course, the course is a recording of someone doing something that's working at that time, but that time changes. You have to have someone, from my perspective, that's going to be on the front of the conversation. So that's what led me to this conversation eventually.
Very cool. So how would you say that the changes you're talking about, obviously you had the organic part dialed in, didn't really have the paid element dialed in yet. How would you say that challenge affected your business?
Well, the issue is that you just eventually hit a hurdle. If you don't have a consistent flow of leads coming in that are going from never heard of you to raving fans, eventually you're going to tap out your list, and you can get pretty far with organic, but there's no predictability. There's no system. There's just kind of going let's say you're doing some media, you're doing speaking tours, there's not a lot of consistency in the cadence of that. And like the lack of predictability of the cash flow can be a real challenge if you're trying to grow your business. So that was where the challenge was.
Got it. Got it. And then, so you realize this though, you're a smart guy, you kind of figured out like, here's what my challenge is. Now I've got to try and, help, find someone to help me fix that challenge. So I'm guessing that you were looking around and, you're dialed into a community that probably gives you access to, or at least could potentially give you access to a lot of different agencies. So what made the Lido Agency in particular stand out compared to other solutions or agencies that you might have looked into?
Well, I mean, I'm wearing a ClickFunnels shirt right now. I see you got a 2 Comma Club board in the back. And I find that the people that are dialed into the ClickFunnels world, there's just a culture similarity there. There's more transparency because I am in some high level ClickFunnels programs. So like we know a lot of the same people, and like the word of mouth that goes along with that. Also on the other side of that, it's very transparent marketplace, meaning that if you don't know what you're doing, that can end your business in the ClickFunnels community because we kind of all know each other, at least the people in the various coaching programs within ClickFunnels. So to get a referral from someone that I know personally, that's doing hundreds of thousands of dollars a month in revenue, especially with your pricing model, I was just real excited about the opportunity to get to know you guys. And out of all the agencies I discussed, I ended up going with you guys, which is the first agency I've ever worked with. But I do have some context just because of the other interviews we did, et cetera.
Got it. So then what do you think would have happened? Now, again, you've got the kind of different elements, different sections or factions of your business. But when it comes to, the book, the offers, the coaching training element, and the need to kind of get, to scale that, like you talked about earlier, and the need to really want to be able to take it like, a book, right? If you can sell 10 of them, you can sell 100,000 of them, 1,000,000, right? It's just a question of getting that book into more people, right? There's very little issue, unless I guess you run into an issue with the publisher, but there's very little issue of fulfillment there.
Totally.
The more people to get it, the better, right? So what would have happened though, thinking about, the book, the coaching offers and so forth, what would happen to those, do you think, had you not partnered with us or really found someone who knows what they're doing paid advertising wise to help scale those offers?
I know exactly what would have happened because we did it without you guys before. You know what I mean? Like same personality, same lead generation tool, same backend product, same exact thing. And it happened. What happens to a lot of people that are focused exclusively on organic, they launch something and the Stripe account goes, pow. And then there's no plan except for to launch something again, to launch another thing. And so a lot of people get stuck in this perma launch because it's the only way to make the cash register ring, is to get people excited about a new opportunity. And they're like, dude, 3 months ago, I bought this new thing that you had, and now you're selling me this other thing. And that's not a good way to build relationships with your clients. That's not a predictable way to build cash flow. And also it's really challenging to build new stuff. So that's exactly what happened in our Stripe account. It goes blast off. Oh my gosh, $100,000 a month. We never had one of those before. And then it just goes like this while I'm trying to figure out what the next step is. And so that's the answer to your question. That's what led me to our conversation. Got
it. So you mentioned, like Blammo and, that organ that, 100,000 a month, but then like, again, no predictability. That's going to peter out real quick if it's, solely organic. So from a way to, like, we're very into obviously measuring things. Like we obviously, everything's very data driven. We can have our assumptions, we can have our opinions, but we don't make decisions on anything in regards to our clients' ads until we have, data to back that up. It's obviously very, very important. So, and I know you're a data-driven guy as well. So could you share with the audience any kind of measurable benefits that you see? I mean, you kind of started to articulate that sort of 100 grand, and maybe that was just, an example or just hypothetical, but since you've been working with us, any kind of real measurable benefits that you've seen from like numbers wise? Well,
I'd be happy to give you some of those data points, but let me just talk about the underlying theory first, because there's a really important thing that took place in this industry that I know nothing about because of working with you guys. And that is everybody crying about iOS killing their business. And I just don't know what that even means. I got into this space right as that was happening. And because of y'all's knowledge of what softwares to use, how to stay on top of it, how to continue to hammer down prices and continue to increase opt-in ratios, my business just kept going. That's not to say that wasn't a really significant change. I know that it was, but I don't know what that even means because I've hired some professionals that are able to mitigate those challenges. So I'm sure that anyone watching this has done some research and recognized there's been a big kind of battle between Apple and Facebook and such, but I don't want to have to spend every waking moment trying to figure out how to navigate those uncharted waters. But I just feel very blessed because I really did get into the space as that was going down for the first time. Like that was the big smack moment for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I just feel very, very grateful. On the other side of that though, we went from a program that was able to produce 10K a month to now, we just average 170K a month over the last 3 months. And it's almost all from paid ads. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't work my butt off creating content, giving people nurtured experiences, doing a lot of stuff to supplement that. But these things work very symbiotically. So I'm happy to go into like cost per lead and all that, but I'm not really sure that it doesn't really know it. Like everybody's business model is different, but the numbers, no matter what your business model is, if you're doing something now and you 10X it, that's good. That's the reality.
And you touched on something there that I think is very important. And I'm on your email list, so I know you do a podcast. I know you email fairly regularly to your list, which is great. And it's important because one of the things that we understand very well and what we see with our most successful clients is really that sort of holistic effort. I know when throwing out that word holistic might sound kind of cheesy or cliche, but when you combine the paid traffic, like what we specifically are doing for a client, and then the client also is out there creating some content or following up with their list of subscribers, consistently, that's when it's like that perfect marriage of things coming together and working very well. Where it's a bit more of a challenge for us is when the client has, no brand recognition, no social media following, no email list, or if they do, and I ask them how often they email their list, and they say, "Oh, I email them a lot, like once a month." I'm like, and they're not putting themselves out there, and they think that, well, I'm just going to hire an agency and have them do it all. That can be done, of course, but it's a little bit, it's a tougher slog, right? It's a little bit longer process because we are trying to, if we're dealing entirely with cold traffic 100% of the time, you really got to warm them up to the brand or the company, and their offers. So what's cool with what you're doing is you really understand the marriage of organic and paid and how they really can work together in a great way.
Totally. I mean, you guys have all done this before where you Google some belt buckle and then it's all you see on Facebook for like 30 days. Well, like that's intentional. They're doing that because at those moments, you're very, very hot in terms of the percentage of likelihood that you're going to move forward. So this is, level 1 of paid marketing, inserting some data tracking tools and pixel data, et cetera, on your website, on your social media, on your landing pages. And then you can segment those lists and target very specifically to those people. So in those moments, while you would pay a complete stranger, you could pay maybe $1 for them to click something. In those moments where they're super, super hot and interested and engaged, maybe you'd pay $100 if they click a specific button. And we're currently doing that right now. I will give a specific criteria of people for a very short amount of time, $100 or pay $100 for them to click a button. Now that button is a scheduling link for a very expensive program that we sell. And we know the likelihood of them, once they click that button, the likelihood of them giving us a lot more than $100 is very, very high. But I'm not focusing on that all day. Those are automations in the back end that we've set up with the help of you. And now I can kind of go to sleep and know that if someone registers for my webinar, they're going to be prompted to click that button at the right time. And that's powerful.
It is. And you guys have and what's cool also is that you have on your back end, as far as your sales process and sales team, you have those things, pretty dialed in. We've talked about your closing ratios. They're very strong. It's something that maybe a lot of people would be, a little jealous of to hear. So yeah, like you said, you're happy to all day long pay $100 per application, because you know that between your sales team, the closing ratio, and the offer itself, it's 100% worth it all day long, every day.
Well, yeah. Let me make a comment about that real quick. So I was actually at Funnel Hacking Live, and there was a conversation about kind of break-even points and such. And if you don't know your kind of break-even points, you can't grow your business because it's very competitive out there. So like the key takeaway was, you cannot scale uncertainty. Only certainty scales. So I need to know the exact, by the way, the number is not $100. It could definitely be $1,000 that I would pay in certain circumstances. But if it's the difference between 100 and 1,000, given how competitive it is in the space, I need to know the exact dollar amount that I'm willing to pay. And then $1 above it doesn't make sense. But without that, we cannot achieve multiple 6-figure months, which is what we're tracking to do. So if you're kind of interested in doing that homework, definitely break it down. breakevenordie.com is something that we've used, and combination of that with paid ads is really, really powerful.
Very cool. Very cool. So you kind of touched on earlier the element of, or like the iOS updates, and how in your world, or in your brain at least, you're like, iOS update, what iOS update? That didn't impact me at all, right? And you mentioned that's because you're working with us, and we've been able to navigate this very well. We were forced to do it, and dove in and really understood what that means, how do we get around that, what different third-party tracking systems, and so forth and so on. So maybe it's in regards to something like that, or maybe it's something different. But what would you say has been what aspect of working with the Lido Agency has been most helpful for you?
Okay, so, man, I have heard so many bad things about working with agencies, and I feel very grateful that I don't really know much about that, but it makes all the sense in the world. So you hire a company, most people hire an agency because they want to have the experience, which is similar to what I have, which is, we're going to pay you, the agency, I'll pay you as long as you just do with the software, you follow the Facebook ads, you follow what's going on with the regulatory environment, you just keep me in good standing and keep the money coming in. That's like the ideal client agency relationship. The problem with that is that most clients have no idea what the software is doing. So there's no transparency in terms of whether or not the agency is doing a good job. You're paying them, but it's a blank check. You don't really know, like, are they monitoring it every day? Are they actually making sure the pixels are filing correctly? These types, are they cross-checking? Are they looking at the funnel and ensuring that what you're saying in the copy of the ad is actually aligned with the landing page? That is the kind of thing where you uncover it 3 months later and you go, oh my gosh, the pixel has not been on and these people have not been tracking it. Now I have to find a new agency. How many times have you heard that story? That's like pretty much everybody out there. And that's why there's so many people who are now trying to figure it out on their own and are running into hurdles. It's very burdensome to do that. So long story short, my real story is that I didn't, I was very lucky to get a kind of a referral to you guys. And I know what that industry is like. And that's my answer. Like, the thing that's been most helpful is that your team will uncover things not exactly related to ads on a weekly basis, which is just indicative of them poking around to ensure that everything's working. So like, that is really, really powerful. Hey, Hunter, there's a misspelling on your landing page. I found it because I was checking a pixel data this morning.
Right. Yeah. And we've got a lot of good people on our team who do dive into that. They take that extra step, sort of go the extra mile to assess those. And while that might not necessarily be technically part of the scope of work,
right?
I think the scope of work really is, sometimes the scope of work goes beyond the scope of work, in the sense that we want to make sure this thing is right, that everything is, firing correctly, that everything's just operating. And even if it's deep in the funnel where we don't really have our hands as much on our clients' funnels per se, but certainly we'll obviously we'll always dive in. We'll opt in, and we'll go through the funnel, go through the offers just to see that everything is working correctly, because it's funny. So Michelle and I, we never worked at an ad agency. So sometimes people might think, well, isn't that like a negative, or is that like kind of like a liability? Like, you guys never worked for an ad agency. Well, what we did do though is we created our own offers for many years. We were, network marketers, we were affiliate marketers, we were in high ticket programs, we were, built our brand, we're emailing our list every day, building our own funnels, building our own pages and creating all this stuff for ourselves. So what we did for so many years for ourselves and our own business is pretty much exactly what the vast majority of our clients are doing right now. So even though scope of work wise, there might be certain elements that doesn't fall into our purview, we still look at it like that entrepreneur, that business owner, like, this is my offer, and what would we want to have happen with if this was our own offer? Like, what we want to make sure was clicking and working well and going smoothly all the way to the end if this was our own funnel or our own ads. So I think it's just a slightly different take on viewing the client relationship, but really the client's offer, but even more like all the different elements that come together to make it all happen. And I think it's just ingrained in us. Like, I'm not really sure if we know another way to do it other than to be really, really hands-on and really dive into this stuff. I don't know what other agencies do or not. All I know is what we do. We treat it like like I said, we treat it like if this was our own offer right now, if this was our webinar coming up and we wanted to get, 500 people on that webinar, what would we be doing? And that's what we're doing for our clients.
Totally. And I kind of completely agree that. One thing that is interesting though, is that I think intuitively, that's what everyone wants. Like, every business wants to run like that. But the difficulty is sometimes you get faced with the reality that it's difficult to do that at scale, but that's what you guys have achieved. So, I'm growing a business right now. I have a coaching business. It'd be really, really nice if I could poke around in all my clients' businesses and give them little tips all day. It's just very hard to scale that. But the infrastructure that you're willing to build and have built out, it's not free, but it creates a situation where if someone needs an ad agency or someone to run ads for them on Facebook, there's only one name I'm bringing up. And this is actually not just all talk. My wife just launched an educational product for her business as well, which is a very different niche info product about how to do the event business. And I gave her a referral. There wasn't like 3 options I sent her and say, try them out. I was like, this is the one to go to. So there it is.
Yeah, and thank you for that referral, by the way. Obviously, thank you. And it's interesting because, we do get a lot of referrals and word of mouth, but which I always say it's the biggest compliment, a client can ever pay us, is to refer a friend or someone that they're in a coaching program or some inner circle with, to say, oh, just to drop our name. This is your wife's offer. So a much more deeply personal referral, right? So talk about, sticking your neck out on the line to make a referral to someone. This is the same person that you have to deal with every day and live with, and, you're going to bed with every night, and, all this and that. And so to refer that and not feel good about it, it's different than if you refer a buddy. There's a lot more potential negative to that referral if it doesn't work out.
Totally. I mean, on the other side of this, before I ended up going on as a client of yours, like I said, I paid a consultant $10,000 to give us like the updated intricacies of Facebook ads. And so I had such a bad experience, and they tried. It's not the best use of my time. And so not only would I not do business with them again, I'm never going to refer someone to even go that route personally. Like, if you are doing, most people that are successful in the coaching business, there are coaches that all they do is coach, which is totally cool. I've gotten a lot out of those coaches too. But most coaches are simultaneously running 2 businesses. They're running whatever business they're running, and then they're coaching people how to run a similar business. That's usually the info model. It's not always the case, but it's a big part of it, right? So if you're really running 2 businesses, you don't need to run a third. You got to take it that seriously. Like, if you're ramping up and spending, let's say $500 a day, $1,000 a day plus, You need to hire $1 million agency that's as good at what you do at running ads.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I've asked you, a handful of questions here. This has been a lot of fun. I really, again, I've enjoyed this time with you, Hunter, and appreciate you coming on here. Is there anything else at this point that you wanted to add, or anything else we should know just about your experience with us, or your experience just with, your offers and scaling in general?
I think that the conversation around finding little nuances, it's not that it's in the scope of work. It's more like this. If you hire someone to clean your car and they're doing a good job, every now and then they're gonna be like, hey, by the way, you have a flat tire. You should get that fixed. It's indicative of someone doing a good job and having the level of care and detail orientedness and just trying to put the person in a position to succeed. If they notice that, they'll say it. However, if the person's claiming that they're cleaning your car and you can't tell if they're cleaning the car or not because you don't have enough knowledge about cars to see, that's the situation with most people running Facebook ads. Like, they don't know if they're actually doing a good job. So that's been like the most affirming thing working with you guys. And I just really enjoyed it. I'm definitely a long-term client. So thanks again.
Awesome. Well, we love working with you. You're definitely, it's great when you put in just like the time and the initiative to have like the elements that you control, to have them always dialed in and going. And you made some changes along the way, but you always let us know way ahead of time. Like, hey guys, here's what I'm thinking. We're like, great. Well, here's what we're thinking. Here's what we'll need to do. And so it's just great. The communication back and forth, knowing that we're all kind of in alignment. We all know what's going to be coming up, and it just makes the ride a lot smoother. So we love working with you. And Hunter, if I know that the people watching this right now, they may or may not be interested in real estate investing or raising capital, but if there is someone here listening that is interested in that or would like to learn more, where might they be able to find you? Via podcast, your website? What's the best way for them to get access to you?
So our kind of private equity company, which is for people to passively invest in real estate, is asymcapital.com. We have our podcast on there. Or if you're interested in being a real estate entrepreneur, you want to raise money or do it as a side hustle, you can learn more about my book at raisingcapitalforrealestate.com.
Yes. And if you happen to see any Facebook ads promoting that book, you know who did them.
You will. You're going to see them. Trust me. If you Google anything related to that, you're going to see me popping up for quite a little bit. So thanks again, guys.
Nice. Awesome. Well, hey, again, Hunter, thank you for your time today. This is a lot of fun. And just appreciate you coming on here, and we love working with you as a client.
Cool. Talk to you soon.
All right. Take care.